The cold rain fell like shards of glass that evening, cutting through the silence of the city as people hurried under umbrellas and headlights glimmered like restless ghosts. Amidst the noise and movement, a frail boy sat curled beside a trash bin near an old cafe, barefoot, trembling, and covered in dirt. His clothes were soaked, his face hidden beneath tangled hair, and in his tiny hands he clutched an empty paper cup that once held coffee grounds he'd scavenged from the garbage. People passed him as if he were invisible, just another forgotten soul swallowed by the city's indifference. But then came a woman who stopped. Her name was Grace. And that single pause, that single act of compassion, would one day change both of their lives forever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of one selfless act to rewrite a destiny, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to Kindness Corner, and share it with someone who still believes there's good in the world. Your support helps us keep spreading stories that remind hearts what humanity truly means. Grace was a young waitress in her late 20s, living on the edge of exhaustion. Every day she worked double shifts at the cafe just to keep her small apartment and pay her mother's hospital bills. Her dreams had been simple once. She had wanted to be a teacher, but life had cornered her into survival. Yet despite her struggles, there was a gentleness in her spirit that the city's cruelty hadn't managed to extinguish. That evening, as she locked up the cafe, she saw the boy again, thin, pale, shaking from the cold. Something about him broke her heart. Maybe it was the way his lips trembled as he tried to sip from an empty cup, or maybe it was because she had once known what it felt like to be unseen. Without thinking twice, she ran back inside the cafe, grabbed a leftover sandwich, a cup of hot chocolate, and one of the staff's old blankets. She walked to him through the rain, knelt beside him, and said softly, "Here, eat." The boy looked up, his eyes wide and fearful at first, as if he didn't believe she was real. He hesitated, but hunger defeated his pride, and he devoured the food with shaking hands. Grace watched quietly, tears welling in her eyes. She asked him nothing, no name, no story. She just smiled and said, "You'll be okay, sweetheart. Just keep holding on." That night, as the boy fell asleep with the blanket around him, Grace returned to her dim apartment, but her mind couldn't rest. She thought of him constantly. The next morning, she brought him more food. Then again the day after. Eventually, she learned that his name was Daniel. He was only 9. His mother had died of an illness, and his father, consumed by addiction, had vanished. Daniel had survived on scraps and slept in abandoned buildings for nearly a year. Grace's heart broke every time she heard him speak. She began to save a small portion of her daily wages to buy him food and clean clothes. On weekends, she'd take him to the public library to keep him warm, letting him read picture books while she cleaned tables nearby. People around her called her foolish. Her landlord scolded her for bringing a street kid near the building. Her boss warned her that she'd lose her job if customers complained. But Grace didn't care. She had lost too much already, her childhood, her dreams, her peace, and helping Daniel somehow gave her life a purpose again. It was as if fate had given her a chance to rewrite a pain she could never heal in herself. Months passed, and though Grace could barely afford her own meals, she found ways to keep Daniel safe. She managed to get him enrolled in a local shelter that provided schooling for homeless children. Every Sunday, she would visit him there, bringing food or small gifts. The boy adored her. He'd wait by the gate just to catch a glimpse of her smile. "You saved me," he once told her, his voice quiet. "No," Grace replied with a gentle laugh, "you saved me, Daniel." But life, as always, had a way of testing hearts that dared to love. Grace's mother passed away one winter night. The hospital bills left her drowning in debt. Her hours at work were cut, and she was forced to move into a smaller place. Even then, she kept visiting Daniel. But one day, when she arrived at the shelter, the staff told her he was gone. A family from another state had adopted him. Grace's heart sank, though she smiled through her tears. At least he would have a better life. That night, she placed a small picture of him, one they had taken at the park, on her bedside table. "Be happy, my boy," she whispered. "That's all I ever wanted." Years turned into decades. Grace grew older, her hair streaked with silver. She no longer worked at the cafe. Arthritis had made her hands too weak. She now cleaned offices at night to make ends meet. The city that once shone with dreams now seemed like a maze of memories she wandered through. Yet she never forgot Daniel. Sometimes, she wondered if he remembered her, or if he had long moved on, like everyone else. One rainy evening, much like the one years ago, Grace was walking home after her shift. Her umbrella had broken, and she was soaked to the bone. She reached her tiny apartment, only to find a notice on her door, eviction. Her landlord had finally lost patience with her late payments. Grace sank onto the steps, the paper trembling in her wrinkled hands. The city lights blurred through her tears. She felt utterly alone. The next morning, she went to the cafe where she had once worked, hoping to speak with the new owner for a cleaning job. But as she stood there waiting, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. From it stepped a tall man in a tailored suit, surrounded by assistants and reporters. His presence turned heads instantly. The cafe manager whispered, "That's Daniel Reed, the billionaire philanthropist who just donated millions to rebuild the city's orphan centers." Grace froze. Her heart raced. Could it be her Daniel? She watched as he smiled for the cameras, shaking hands with officials. His voice, deeper but familiar, carried through the air. Then, suddenly, his gaze fell upon her, an old woman standing in the crowd with tired eyes. Time stopped. The noise faded. Daniel's expression changed instantly. He excused himself, walked past everyone, and came straight to her. Without a word, he knelt before her, tears in his eyes. "Miss Grace," he said softly, his voice breaking, "I found you." She couldn't speak. She could only touch his face, trembling as memories flooded back. "You remember me?" she whispered. He nodded, tears streaming down. "You fed me when I was invisible. You gave me warmth when the world was cold. Every success I have, every breath I take, I owe it to you." Daniel insisted she come with him. That evening, he took her to a grand home overlooking the city. He told her how he had been adopted by a kind family, how he studied, worked hard, and built a company dedicated to helping homeless children like he once was. "Every step of the way," he said, "I kept your words in my heart, keep holding on." Grace wept as she listened, overwhelmed by the love that had come full circle. Daniel made sure she never had to work again. He built a foundation in her name, the Grace Haven Foundation, to help single mothers and homeless kids. The media called it a miracle story, but for Grace, it was simply proof that kindness never truly disappears, it just comes back in ways you never expect. Years later, as Grace sat in the garden of her new home, surrounded by children laughing and playing, Daniel would often sit beside her. They would watch the sunset together, the golden light reflecting off the city skyline that had once felt so cruel. And every time, Grace would smile and whisper, "You kept holding on, didn't you?" Daniel would reply softly, "Because you taught me how." If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that remind the world that compassion can change lives, and sometimes, it can even come back to find you. Speech balloon special request to all of you, comment below what kindness means to you, because your words might be the hope someone needs today.